Hello there. Now, for those of you clicking on this video day of, for example, there's probably two main questions that you have in mind. The first one being, if you're a follower of the channel, especially the amount of Jag XK and XKR related content that I've done, why have I sold the Jag? I seem to like it. I've done some upgrades to it, spacers on the wheels, fantastic sound and exhaust. It was a great looking car. It was already fast. Why have I sold it? Why have I got rid of the Jag? Why have I taken arguably a much higher risk on getting one of these again, a Maserati? Secondly, which Maserati have I actually purchased? Well, I'm going to include some footage, of course, in the video, and for the shrewd among you, the potentially fellow Maserati fans, you will notice immediately some key differences between this and my other Maserati, which was also a Quattroporte. I purchased a Quattroporte again. My other one, though, was significantly different in a number of ways which I do not like. It was a 2005 Quattroporte. Yes, it was the only one in the world in its colour, which was great, Mirabelle Blue from Ferrari, a special order, but it had the Cambiocorsa transmission. A transmission which is not an automatic, it's an automated manual. So, as I was not aware of at the time, you had to use the flappy paddles, otherwise it would eat its own clutch. Mine had major issues. After 3 months of ownership, it wouldn't even pull away off the driveway. So yeah, it wasn't worth continuing. But I didn't pay anywhere near as much for that one as I did for this. It was half the price. But a key difference between that one and this one is this car's history. Now, as I've said before, I could not care less about service history. It means nothing to me. It's the biggest scam in the motoring world in terms of later life cars. This one, though, despite the fact that it's from 2009, is actually still within its service book. It's only had 4 services, because this car's only done 58,000 miles. Now that, to some of you, especially those who don't drive yet, might sound like a huge amount of miles. That really isn't for a 12-year-old car. It's only had 2 owners from brand new. One service was last year, only a few thousand miles ago, and it's in not immaculate condition, but very good condition. The previous owner had a full stack of receipts and paperwork of all the things he's had done to it. Front subframe was completely removed and replaced, rust coated, a number of other things which he spared no expense on, things which I certainly wouldn't do. I'd cut my losses, but things which I appreciate the previous owner doing. Now, in terms of performance, this is funnily enough the first time I've actually had a downgrade compared to a previous car, because so far I had the Touareg V10, then a Quattroporte, then the Jag XKR, which were each faster and more powerful than the last. Now, technically, I've made a back step, because this has about 20 horsepower less than the Jag. It's got 340 pound-feet of torque to the Jag's 413. Those of you who know me know that I love torque, so that's kind of a downside. In terms of acceleration, it's technically slower, like 5.5 seconds to the Jag's 4.9, so about half a second difference. Top speed on this is roughly the same territory as the Jag, about 170 miles an hour. Fuel economy is pretty close between the two. Officially, these tend to average like 20 to the gallon, but some owners say you can get 23, 24, which is fine by me. That's similar to what I was getting in the Jag. Fuel tank on this one is incidentally bigger though, which I'm a huge fan of because it's better for long journeys. You don't have to fill up quite as often. Of course, it's not cheaper. It just means conveniently you don't have to stop as often. This is a 90-litre tank compared to the 70 in the Jag. One of my pet peeves with the Jags, the XFR and the XK, is actually that the tank's way too small. In terms of performance though, I will say, interestingly, despite the fact this doesn't have all-wheel drive, it's got way less torque, it's longer and weighs 300 kilos more than my Jag. The Jag was about 1650, this is about 1950, so just under 2 tons. This feels more responsive. It actually feels quicker than the Jag. With the Jag, I think it might have been a little bit of lag, thanks to the supercharger. I know superchargers aren't supposed to have lag, but it kind of felt like it a little bit. Plus, this car's gearbox is very good. That is another key point in this video. Now, I'm going to touch on the gearbox when I do a Beards and Cars more, official review of this one in a couple of days' time to go back to back with my other Quattroporte review. But one of the key reasons, in fact, possibly even the number one reason why I even considered getting this car, is the gearbox. Mine was a Cambiocorsa. As I said, I would never get another Cambiocorsa car. This is a ZF. BMW used a ZF in the 6 Series, one of my favourite cars that I reviewed last year, and even though of course any gearbox can have its issues, it is, to all of intents and purposes, a more conventional automatic. So it's not an automated manual, it's a proper auto. It still has the paddles anyway, which I don't use that often, but it's a proper automatic gearbox. It doesn't roll backwards on hills like the other one used to with the F1 start that only holds the brake for like a second for you and then starts rolling backwards. This one doesn't have the old school annoying Italian handbrake that barely even works until you click it all the way up as far as it can go. It's got a more traditional e-brake. It's just more modernized, and the difference between the 4 years is just very visible. Plus, I'm actually happier with the way this one looks compared to mine. The condition it's in is better anyway, because for those who don't know, the one which I purchased before had 110,000 miles on it, and I paid $7.5 grand for it at the time in 2019. So of course it was going to have its issues. I was naive in thinking it would be better. I expect this one will have issues at some point. It's a matter of when, not if, of course, being a Maserati. But with 2 owners, much, half the miles basically, a way better gearbox, newer bodywork, newer parts that the previous owner fitted, just across the board, this is a far better car, even in terms of the condition it's already in. As you can see, the interior looks fantastic. I've, again, probably spliced in some other footage as well. But in terms of how it feels, and again, I'm going to touch on this in my actual review for it in Beards and Cars, this feels better than my other one as well, because of 2 primary things. The gearbox feels better, and I know purists will say, oh no, the Cambio's way quicker through the gears, it's more sporty. I couldn't care less. You can feel that this is a better gearbox in terms of real world driving, not flappy paddles, just actually being a relaxed automatic, and that is far more important to me. Secondly, and this is interesting to me, this one is significantly more comfortable of a ride than my other one. I don't know if they maybe changed a bit of the suspension geometry or updated the parts, or maybe just due to its age, but it's definitely more comfortable than the other one. And also, I think it probably feels more comfortable as well because I'm comparing it to a Jag XKR. And the Jag is comfortable for a GT, but it's a fairly lightweight aluminium car which responded to every bump on the road, and even, driving through a rain puddle would make its handling kind of go off a little bit. So yeah, in terms of comparing this to the Jag, it's without question more comfortable. One of the primary reasons, though, that I actually decided to go for something like this, and I wasn't just considering Maseratis, to be honest, I was also considering an Audi RS5, potentially a Jag XFR, which of course I gave my Car of the Year award to last year. The reason why I went against those is RS5s are a little bit more difficult to find in this kind of price range. And in terms of the Jag, as I said, I absolutely adore the XFR, but I feel like I'd almost want a little bit of a break from the Jag. If I did go back to one, it would probably be down the line sometime. And I also wanted to retain as much as possible, like the real exotic visual status of the car. I wanted something that still looked fantastic. Now, I will say, I personally, as much as I love Maserati, I personally think that the Jag is a better looking car. Primarily, though, I think it looks better because of its shape. It's a very pretty supercar kind of shape, whereas the Maserati has more, I don't know, it's more of a, in the UK, we'd call this like a posh-looking car. It's like a Bentley, it's like a Rolls. It's got that kind of stately appearance, wherein I would say the Maserati looks more exotic, whereas the Jaguar looks more beautiful. The Jag's a bit more brutish, a bit more, timeless, old-school GT kind of look, like a modernised E-Type. I could definitely see people preferring the look of the Jag. As I said, I do think it's a prettier shape anyway. As it happens, though, I think the Maserati Quattroporte is a stunning car anyway. I'm super happy with the colour. There's a small couple of things that could do with maybe cleaning or touching up on the car. But overall, it's a very impressive example, which I'm really happy with. Now, you heard the way it sounds. I said already I want to get the mufflers deleted. The mufflers are much smaller on this one than the Jag, which had that huge suitcase on the back. And yeah, I mean, obviously in terms of the overall experience, I will doubtless be doing a couple of different videos on this car. I'll be doing a video if I do get the mufflers cut off, maybe 1 or 2 other things. I'm not planning to do any other modifications to it though. I won't be putting spacers on the wheels, nothing else. It's not that kind of car. Well, just to interject on my own video for a second, because I realised I hadn't really touched on why I specifically sold the Jag. Part of it, I think there's really three reasons. One is because I like to change my car anyway. Even if I love the car, like I love the Touareg V10, I still have that urge to try something new. In this case, something familiar, but still new because it is an updated version of the other Maserati. Second reason is because, and this is the most important one, I needed more space. The rear seats, of course, are infinitely bigger in terms of legroom. There is technically 5 seats in this one, not 4. And the boot space is better as well, although it's a separate trunk rather than a hatchback like the Jag had. Those practicality differences are really what I wanted. Plus, I found that where I live and in the kind of weather that we have in the UK, the Jag, although not bad, it wasn't the most confidence-inspiring car in inclement weather. Let's put it that way. It reacted to every single puddle on the road, and the Maserati simply doesn't do that. One of the main reasons why is because it's heavier. The extra 300 kilos, especially with 51% of its weight actually being over the back end rather than the front, and that is different to the older car which had 53% over the back, so even more. It just feels so much more stable and so much more grounded. Even in the rain, this, I would say, is a better handling car than the Jag and a more stable car than the Jag, and that's a significant difference for me. Plus, in terms of the reliability, the Jag wasn't flawless anyway. And even though, yes, the parts are cheaper for the Jag, as I said, the Jag still had a number of those smaller ongoing gremlins and things which still needed to be updated and changed and fixed technically. So, again, those reasons are basically why I wanted to change. Overall, of course, stick around on the channel in a couple of days' time, wherein I will be doing the more impartial, step back and look at it more honestly without the rose-tinted glasses in Beards and Cars. And it'll be interesting to compare that to my thoughts on the 2005 car, which I owned before, way back in 2019 when I did that review. So overall, that's it for my new car reveal. Hope you guys like the way it looks. I'm certainly very happy with it. Of course, we're in the honeymoon period, so we'll see how things go. But ultimately, stick around for that review, and I'll see you next time. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.